This theme park is closing apparently forever. I only have 1 day here, 6 hours left, and a fast pass. Let's see if we can get everything done. Hi, I'm Andy, and I have challenged myself to ride 200 roller coasters in 1 year. So far, I am up to... I was not originally planning to visit California's Great America up in the Bay Area of California, but the opportunity arose and I decided to seize it. The only problem with that is that I only had 1 day to do so and a very short window of time to ride every single coaster in the park. Up until this point in my journey, my strategy has been to do as little research as possible whenever I visit a new park. I don't want to be tainted by anybody else's opinion. I'm not watching top 10 videos, and I don't want to feel pressure to go along with like what the general consensus is on various roller coasters. So I'm going in, not watching anyone else's videos. However, since I had such a short window of time to experience California's Great America, I did find myself opening up the old YouTube and looking for videos of people talking about the best ways to tackle this park, rides that maybe have a super long wait that I should plan to hit first in the morning or something. What I found was a glut of videos with alarmist headlines talking about how California's Great America is dying, it is closing forever, and these headlines give the impression that this park's closure is imminent, which of course gave me all the more pressure to get in there and ride every single ride before these rides are gone forever. How many times can I say ride in a single sentence? And we all gotta play the algorithm game. I don't blame anyone for making these headlines. I'm sure if you look at the title of this video, I'm probably employing a similar strategy. But after my visit to the park, I did a little bit more research on this, and the truth of the matter is, no one really knows when this park is actually going to close. Basically, back in 2022, Cedar Fair, which is California's Great America's parent company, sold the land that the park is sitting on to a company called Prologis. And the arrangement that they have worked out is that Cedar Fair is now leasing the land from Prologis so they can continue to operate the park. And I am not a real estate tycoon. I don't understand why this deal is structured the way that it is, but that's what it is. The important part of this deal is that it stipulated that they needed to continue to allow the park to operate until 2028, with a potential option to extend that lease until 2033. Now, apparently they are allowed to terminate the lease as long as they give a 2-year warning. So really nobody knows when this park is actually going to close. It doesn't seem like it's going to be in the extremely near future, but it certainly does make a good hook. So let's get into this park and ride every coaster that they have before they're gone forever.
Back to the challenge.
According to RCDB, there is a total of 9 credits that could be earned from this park. So let's start it off with a banger. All right, Gold Striker, that was so much faster than I was expecting it to be. As soon as that first drop hits, this ride is just absolutely relentless. You do not have time to catch your breath until you get back to the station, and I love this ride for that. Got that front row seat, amazing view. Even in the front, it was shockingly fast, so if I have time at the end of the day, I'm definitely gonna try to come back here and hit this up one more time and get that back seat and see how much it beats me up, but excellent, excellent first ride. Patriot, not a fan. RIP my ears, I was banging back and forth between those headrests so much. Also, just a very short ride, pretty unthrilling. Would not ride again. That ride was just so painful and mediocre, and I was starting to get worried that California's Great America really front-loaded their park. Instead of hiding their best ride in the back, making everyone go all the way through, maybe they did us a courtesy and put it right up front so we could ride that and then get the hell out of there. But then I came across whatever the hell this coaster's name is. All right, what is it called? What are you called? Railblazer. Trailblazer has taken the #1 spot so far. Phenomenal ride. I was in the very front seat. I cannot recommend that seat highly enough. It's a single like 1x1x1, so you're just by yourself, and the rail you're riding on, hence the name of the ride, is just that it just seems like such minimal support. So to be in the front and all you see is this one little just sort of orange line that you are following, absolutely thrilling. That was so good. Definitely gonna try to come back and ride this in the back if I have time at the end of the day, but man, that was so good. That was so good. Amazing. This is what I have come to learn is called a single rail coaster, and I'm a huge fan of this style. The single rail and single file, one at a time train style makes this an incredibly nimble ride. So it can pull off some very tight maneuvers, some twists and turns that I imagine are not possible in a larger, more cumbersome style of track and train. And it does it all in a pretty small footprint. Now, if I had any critique of this coaster, it would be that it is a pretty short ride, but it does so much good with the limited time that it has. There is no downtime, there is no dead time. It is just nonstop thrills. And much like Gold Striker, the second this thing gets going, you do not have a chance to think about what's happening. You don't have a chance to catch your breath. It is just nonstop thrills with a large variety of coaster elements as well. My favorite things are that first drop and you kind of go through this little rock tunnel thing. And then there are a few inversions at the end. And I don't know what it is about this style of ride, but those inversions hit very hard, especially if you are in the front row and you have nothing and no one in front of you. I think that in general with roller coasters, the ideal that any manufacturer should be striving for is a train where you feel safe, but also as free as possible. And I think that the single rail style offers so much freedom. Now, I'm personally not a huge fan of the over-the-shoulder restraints. Give me that like clamshell lap bar kind of thing that's on Velocicoaster any day, which for my money has the scariest inversion of any coaster that I have been on thus far in my short, brief coaster enthusiast career. So I'm not a huge fan of these over-the-shoulder restraints, but I can forgive it. I didn't find them to be uncomfortable, but I do feel like they do take a little bit away from the freedom. However, the trade-off being that you have nobody on either side of you, and also what you see in front of you, again, especially if you're in that front row, is just this one rail, just one little orange line that you are just zipping all around and following. It almost feels as if some gigantic cartoonist in the sky has an orange marker and they are just like doing some like light writing and just like whipping around, and you are just a second behind their hand and just following like every little thing that they do. It is a pretty remarkable feeling, and I think that combined with this freedom that this style of train offers, I think that's what makes this such a winning combination. So again, huge fan. We are 40 minutes into the day, 3 coasters down. I'm having a blast. I have to say that I'm already preemptively a little sad that this place is closing. Granted, it might not be for a while. We might get back here again, but might not. So there's some phenomenal rides that I'll be sad if I never get to ride them again. So at this point, the day is going unbelievable, and nothing could possibly mess that up.
You sure about that? You sure about that? You sure about that?
Sadly, Demon was closed the entire day that I was here. So that's one credit I for sure am not gonna get. But opening up the trusty app, I see that Grizzly has a mere 15-minute wait. That's probably a walk-on, right? When I walk up to the ride, I notice a lot of people in line, and an amount that I would say for sure does not equate to a 15-minute wait. So I used my trusty fast lane and I zipped right up to the loading platform, where I was met with absolute chaos. There is no grouper telling people which row that they should be going into. It is just this free-for-all. You can't even tell which line you're in, so it's just this complete jumble of humans, shoulder to shoulder. It is uncomfortable, it is loud, it is chaotic. But the worst part of all of this was the dispatch times. We are talking one train ops, my friends, and not just any one train ops accompanied by the slowest ride crew I have, up until now, find some wood to knock on, ever seen. After standing up there for about 30 minutes and barely moving a couple of feet, I started to time the dispatches. Now, at their best, we were looking at 5 to 6 minutes between dispatches, and at their worst, there were many that I clocked at between 9 and 10 minutes. After about an hour, I was truly starting to lose hope. I had barely moved and time was ticking away at this park that I was thinking was closing forever soon and I might never get a chance to come back here. And I still had 5 more coasters to ride in this park, in addition to any other fun rides and stuff that I might find that I still want to do, even if they're not a coaster. It was depressing, but I knew that I would regret if I just left the line at this point. And I know, sunk cost fallacy and all of that, but I'm on this 200 coaster challenge and I keep reminding myself that if I reach the end of the year and I am 1 coaster shy of hitting that goal, I'm gonna kick myself for leaving this line. So I persisted. Finally, after, I kid you not, an hour and a half of shuffling forward 1 to 2 feet at a time every 5 to 10 minutes, I made my way to the front of my row. And the train pulls in, and slowly, so slowly, the people get out. And slowly the air gates open and I go and I plop myself down into that train car. Victory was mine. But then I did not fit. And then it started to rain because of course it did. Now, for those of you who have watched my origin story video, you will know the story of a time that I was kicked off a roller coaster for being too fat to ride. And at the time, many, many years ago, that induced great feelings of shame and guilt and really made me not want to ride coasters at all anymore. I'm happy to report that that is no longer the case. I don't tie my self-worth to being able to fit into a roller coaster anymore, but nonetheless, it's still a bummer when you're on a ride something and you can't, especially when you have been waiting so long to get on it. But after I exited that line queue and strolled along my merry way, I quickly found a reminder that things could be so much worse than not being able to get on a ride. You could always make it onto a ride and then not be able to get off, like this poor unfortunate soul, stuck at the top of a drop tower, alone, new fear unlocked. I asked a bystander how long that person had been up there. They told me it was about 20 minutes. I stuck around because I was just so curious how this was going to resolve, and thankfully, not too long after I got there, they did figure out whatever needed to be figured out, and they were able to slowly lower this rider to the ground, and they were released unharmed, safe and sound. Right next door to the drop tower is the Psycho Mouse. I was not a fan of this coaster. I'm guessing the intent of this style of coaster is to act as sort of a stepping stone between baby's first coaster and more thrilling adult fare, but for me personally, I just felt like I was being assaulted by this thing. Specifically, those hairpin turns that are at the top of the ride right after the lift hill, those things are so painful. Each turn just slammed you into the side of the coaster, and it is relentless. It is one after the other, and by the time you have regrouped from that first painful slam, you are on to the next one. By the third one, I was just praying for the sweet release of death because I hated being on this thing. Thankfully, After those hairpin turns, it evolves into a relatively pleasant ride. There's some, pretty smooth little drops and dips, a couple fun little lateral forces. Nothing to write home about, but thankfully nothing that was gonna put me in the hospital or leave any further bruises on my poor beaten down, burnt out husk of a body. Anyway, if I never see a coaster of this style ever again, I will die happy. Right? There's no more of these out there, are there? Are there? Be honest. Flight deck was a very good time. Very, very short ride, but definitely plenty of thrills in the time that it does have. So I'm glad I did it. I would do it again. This was another close call with the seating. I sat in a seat where the seatbelt couldn't quite connect. I said, hey, I'm sorry, I gotta get off. The guy's like, don't worry, I got you. And they have one singular plus size seat in the third row that has the 2 seatbelts on it that I was able to fit in, no problem whatsoever. So one big guy per ride is their limit, I guess, but you might be able to fit on. At this point in the day, I had just completed a full lap of the park and ridden every coaster that was open, I could fit on, and was not a children's coaster. So I took this opportunity to just run to the van real quick, grab a bite to eat, regroup, and then head back in to try to get some more laps in on my favorites, and I was still crossing my fingers that Demon would open up. To be expected, Gold Striker was just as thrilling the second time around. I sat in the back seat, a little more airtime, a little bit of a rougher ride, much funner first drop, highly recommend. Got rides 2 and 3 in on Railblazer, got the back seat, went to the front seat again, back seat also great, but I'm full-time front seat for this one. It's amazing. It's an amazing first drop. There's something about the Fast Pass that I'm just like, I don't want to abuse these privileges. I know I have paid for them, but isn't that kind of like what's wrong with this country? I think what bothers me so much about the fast lane situation for Railblazer is that the trains have such limited capacity, and to their credit, the station crew for Railblazer, I think, was the best, fastest, most caring, most attentive that I saw on this entire trip. But still, each train can only fit 8 people. And I feel like, generally speaking, the single rail style probably doesn't have a lot of dead space. As a single rider, I'm often going through the fast lane or the single rider line or whatever, and I'm just kind of there to fill in whatever gaps happen to be left over by odd numbered groups of people. But every seat is an odd numbered seat with the single rail coaster, so I'm guessing that there's not a ton of empty spots in there, and so I don't feel like I'm just kind of filling a spot that would have been empty anyway. I feel like it's very much brought to my attention that I am taking the spot of somebody that has been waiting in line for a longer time than me, if not a very long time. And yes, this is a service that I have paid for. I'm using it within the parameters set by the park, so this is like a park issue, not necessarily a use issue by anyone who purchases this service. But I also kind of feel like we have a lot of problems in this world because people who have money say, well, I have this money, so I can do this thing, and it's fine because I have that money. I can get away with it. This is not the point of this channel to talk about these issues, but I do feel like the theme park is often a microcosm of society and societal issues. And so I think that the parks have given people the ability to abuse this system in a way that would really negatively affect certain people that are waiting in line in the standby line. I don't love that. And here's what I mean by that. Me, single rider, filling in a space here and there, displacing one person a couple times in a row. I don't love it, but that feels like that's just kind of standard fare is what it is, right? But if I decide that I want to go and do 20 laps on this thing, all of a sudden this coaster, which according to the internet has a theoretical hourly capacity of only 600 people, all of a sudden, like me taking away 20 of those 600 spots in the hour, I don't know if I could do 20 rides in an hour, but you know, regardless, that doesn't feel great. That feels like I'm greatly diminishing the capacity of this coaster. But what if you had a group of 6 to 8 friends all with the fast lane and they all want to lap this thing, even if they want to do it 5 times in a row, which I know is probably a lot for most friend groups or whatever. Maybe they want to do it 20 times in a row. All of a sudden, these people are taking up every seat on every train. Let's say hypothetically they unload and get back around in time to catch every other train. They are drastically reducing the capacity of this coaster. And I don't like that that is something that people could potentially be able to do. I don't know what the solution is. All I know is it makes me feel uncomfortable to have that power. So, you know, I tried to go and do 2 to 3 laps and then leave for, you know, an hour or 2 and then come back to it. So I wasn't taking up too much space. And I guess this is just a plea for people that go to theme parks to like think about how you affect other humans that are at the park. Think about your neighbor. That's it. I'm going to step off of my soapbox now. Maybe California's Great America will close forever and we won't even have to think about this issue, but I have a feeling I'm gonna encounter some more single rail coasters in the future. For now, it is time for me to exit the park with my tail between my legs, having only ridden 5 of the potential 9 credits that I could have gotten at this park. That being said, I am so glad that I got to visit California's Great America. I feel like even though they don't have the big like headlining attraction, I don't think the theming is like, you know, blowing it out of the water, but it's a fun little park with a couple really great rides. And I'm glad I got to go here before they close forever. If nothing else, not to harp on it again, but it gave me Railblazer, which at this early point in my journey, I could easily say cracks my top 10 coasters.
Goodbye, Railblazer. I'll always remember you.
Now, if you thought going to this park with only 1 day and 6 hours to try to get in everything was way too short of a time, well, hang on tight because my next stop is Knott's Berry Farm and I have 1 day, but only 4 hours to take in every ride in the park. They've got 9 coasters. Can I do better than the 5 that I rode at California's Great America? Well, you should check out this video right here and see how I did.